Quit the 9 to 5 with Ben Handler, getting you out of the rat race and into a career buying property.
Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm the co-host of Quit the 9 to 5. My name's Alex Whitlock, and I'm really excited to be involved in this show, standing in for Phil Tarrant. Joining me today is Ben Handler. Ben, great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So excited to be involved in this, Ben. As we were sort of chatting just earlier, I've been a property investor for many, many years. I bought my first property in 1998. I was so excited in the build-up to buying the property. During the property settlement, I actually bought off the plan, which I wouldn't necessarily go back and do now. But look, that got my sort of foothold in the market. And going back to that time, the thought of actually making property investment a career as well as a passion was sort of almost unthinkable. So I'm really excited to get into this and to find out exactly how investors like me could actually turn their passion into a profession.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the golden question across Australia, because I mean, Aussies, we love property and we're very hungry for property, and it's all about how do you then monetize that skill, that passion, that knowledge into a career that's obviously very lucrative. And then you're also helping clients, meet financial goals. So it's, very fulfilling.
Look, with a lack, you don't go to university and study property at university. So I think training, education, guidance, mentoring, and really understanding if I have what is required myself to be responsible for other people's investment decisions, I think that's really, really critical. I'm really pleased that you've been able to get one of your graduates along to join us. We've got a young man who has made a transition from a very, very well-paid job working as an electrician, a passionate property investor, and he's actually made the jump and done your course, and he's now out in the field. I'm really, really pleased to welcome you to Luke Bailey. Luke.
Thanks very much for having me, mate. Cheers.
All the way from Adelaide.
Yep.
Great to have you here. So I'd just like to just sort of look at your journey, and before we sort of get into the actual part of becoming a buyer's agent, what switched you on to property as an investor originally?
So I was working away in the fly and fly industry as an electrician, mine sites, gold mines, LNG around Australia. And generally in the fly and fly industry, you're on quite good money, you can save really quickly. So I started investing in property when I was 19, and then I went on to build quite a successful portfolio across 3 states. Working with some other electricians that had invested in property was probably what first got me into it.
Luke, I'm interested to know, what was it when you were a young man, earning good money, very tough job, but well rewarded. What was it about property, not shares or any other kind of investment or sort of savings? What was it that brought you around to wanting to invest in property?
Yeah, it was probably initially reading a lot of books. That's what got me onto the, a lot of people can typically choose property, shares, maybe invest in startup businesses. I chose property, and it's one avenue that you can leverage the bank's money to increase wealth and build wealth into the future. So it was typically, I did think of it and think, is it going to be shares? Is it going to be property? Is it going to be a business? And I just chose property and went for it. And I guess the rest is history. Yeah.
I was very focused as a young man at 19. And earning good money is really sort of secondary. I think, when you're 19 years old, I had an overdraft, I think, until I was about 29. But I think it's shows your commitment and your focus to actually look at using that money to put it to a constructive channel. Funnily enough, you talk about books and education. I read a book by Jan Summers in the mid-90s, and it was absolutely life-changing for me. It showed how you don't have to earn a fortune. You can be on a very modest income and start to create that into not only an accumulating asset, but also sort of a cash flow generating asset as well. So very, very inspirational. Education is very important. So you've spent many years, you started at 19. I just want to look at the journey and the mindset for you as a successful worker, earning very, very good money. What was the mindset for you that you actually wanted to quit the 9 to 5 and start taking control over your life and to turn your passion into a profession, really?
Yeah, originally I didn't know what a buyer's agent was. Being from Adelaide, it's not really that familiar.
So you, when you bought your own property, you didn't have the help of a professional?
That's right, I didn't, and I sort of wish I did back then. It probably wasn't the best property, or I probably would have done things differently now. But it was working on these fly in, fly out sites around Australia, offshore. The word got around, and people were coming to me saying, "Hey, I've heard you've got quite a few properties. Can you help me research the markets, source these properties, negotiate the lowest possible price?" And I said, yeah, no problems. And I was doing all this from, I'm talking dodgy satellite phones and poor internet connection and whatnot. And people were saying to me, why are you doing this full time? And it was a combination of that and reading articles from Ben in Australian Property Investor magazine before I went, hey, maybe I can do this for a living. And that was, I guess, the humble journey and the initial light bulb moment.
That's fantastic. Ben, I just like your opinion on this. I mean, I bought in excess of 30 properties over the years. I absolutely love it. It's changed my life. It's been inspirational for me, and it's been very liberating. And as an investor, because I care so greatly about property, because I really have always recognised the opportunities. I haven't always bought the best, but I've always done well with property. So I've found myself advising friends, recommending that they, not the property they should buy, but sort of really advocating using property as a vehicle for them to improve their lives. You must have similar experience. And, what was the sort of the journey that took you into making this a profession for yourself?
Yeah, well, for me, it was slightly different in the sense of I'd left the corporate world with what I was doing, and I was working in the property arena. So I was working for a property funds management company. And I guess my catalyst moment was I was in the States in California, and I realized and started researching the models over there, or the real estate model. And, around 86% of people use a buyer's agent there.
They do, yeah. So funny, it's very different system to here.
Very different system. So I was thinking, well, why is it so prevalent here? But in Australia, obviously we're quite behind in time with innovation and everything else. But I thought, so what's going on here? And so that's, I guess, what triggered for me the point of let's get started. And so I came back to Sydney, validated the model, signed up a client and thought, okay, this works. I can get X amount of dollars for this service. The client gets value. It makes sense. However, people like Luke and a lot of people that I speak to, I very commonly hear that they're doing it for free, for family, for friends.
For the passion of it.
For the passion. And that's the typical sign of that this could be a full-time career for you. Because when people are coming to you, they trust you. They want to obviously get your advice or at least your recommendations. So obviously that's a very good indication that this could be a very good career for you.
I think there's an interesting thing with property. We're all passionate about it here. Some people will buy a property as part of an overall sort of financial plan. It's just really an asset, and it sort of sits there along with their shares and, with the bonds and whatever else. But I think, when you have a passion for property, I think there is an emotional, even though they say there's no emotion in property investment, I disagree very strongly. I think it is a very rewarding, satisfying. I have no emotion. I've got shares as well. I'm a bad share buyer, but I've got no emotional connection with my shares. It's just, they go up or they generally go down. Property is an emotional thing. You're still looking for a financial outcome, but it's tangible, it's real, it's bricks and mortar. People live there. And I think that quite early on, when you start investing in property, if this is something you're going to continue doing, and I think that as that passion and that excitement and that drive and that inspiration grows, then I think you start to reach a point where you do. I certainly would have loved to have gone into real estate. There was a time in my life, in fact, funnily enough, I digressed for a second, when I was in Hong Kong when I bought my first place. I actually went along and tried to get a job with a group called Chesterton Petty over there, which was commercial real estate. I'd started to make a little bit of money, didn't get the job, probably a good thing, but I stayed in media. But how does your course help to shape maybe that drive and that vision to move into that? And how does that actually help to make that a reality? Yeah,
well, I think for me, I learned very early on that buying property was one of the easiest parts of the role of a buyer's agent.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who own one property or maybe 2, 3 plus, they may inherently think, hey, well, I'm going to be good at this. But the answer's not yes, because I personally think the 3 hardest parts of the role are 1, finding clients, 2, consistently finding clients, and 3, signing up clients. And then comes the piece of buying property. And even if you haven't bought property before, and let's just say hypothetically you're doing the role, you can go to realestate.com and domain.com and you can find properties. You can then match properties. And so you can then negotiate with agents and you can start to work it out. But finding the clients and signing up clients is one of the hardest parts. So my program really dives into the bottlenecks. And so looking at my company over the last 10 years that I was running at Cohen Handler, I looked at the data and thought, where are the buyer's agents failing that have come in the doors? Where are the volatile buyer's agents? And it all came in those 3 areas. So my program dives very deep in those areas. And that's why someone like Luke and a lot of other people, they finish the program, they're good at buying property, And then when they learn the other pieces, they accelerate really quick.
I think I'm most impressed with Luke's story, that Luke has gone out and bought property successfully. Look, and there may be the odd one that hasn't done as well as you could have hoped in the early days, but it's part of a learning process. So Luke has certainly clearly, of his own volition, gone and learned how to buy and research, and he's clearly taken a lot of stock in educating himself. Luke, just coming over to you and actually making that transition from having a very, very good salary. It was obviously fueling and funding your own personal growth strategy in terms of investment property. Emotionally for you, what was the trigger point that made you think, I'm going to take the jump? And what were some of the fears as you went through that transition?
Yeah, good question. Initially, I was working away 3 or 4 weeks at a time. I was away from my friends and family. I didn't want to do that forever. I wanted a bit more flexibility, and that's something that being a buyer's agent can offer. So the initial fears are probably, where am I going to find my clients from? I knew I was really good at research. I knew I was really good at buying property. I've got the track record as a property investor to show people that. But initially it was finding the clients, and that's when I turned to Ben, and Ben's obviously helped me out a lot with that. And that's probably where I spend 80% of my time, is lead generation, focusing on having referral partner meetings, social media content. That's really where the game is won and lost as a buyer's agent.
I think that's really, really interesting. Again, as an investor, another sort of part of the team that I've always used. I say since I've come to Australia, I've used buyer's agents. I bought one place in Queensland when I first got here. I bought 5 places off the plan before I came here. Probably bought all the rest of them, probably about 25 places through a buyer's agent. So they're an integral part of my team. But looking at another part of my team, mortgage broker, critical in terms of the buying process. And so many brokers that I've dealt with are so good at understanding the mortgage process, understanding the application process, assessing my needs. They really struggle with winning clients. And it's something that you see not just in being a buyer's agent, but in many different businesses. I think it's a really critical success factor in building a business, is understanding how to attract clients, how to then convert clients, and then how to get referrals from other clients.
That's it. And I always tell people that if you're good at buying property, it's great, but if you don't have clients, it means nothing.
Yeah.
And then you can't get momentum with this career path. And that's correct. In any industry, you need clients. No leads, no sales. And I think that the buyer's agent world, it can be very difficult to get clients. It's very lucrative what we do. It's quite misunderstood what we do. A lot of people, hasn't been around a long time, this sector. So a lot of people don't understand the earnings. And it's quite astronomical. I don't think there's many other sectors that exist in multiple industries where you can jump in and earn the style of money you can as a buyer's agent. But that just comes as a byproduct of, servicing clients, etc. But you need the clients. And so talking about mortgage brokers, we work really well with them. And they're a very common referral partner of what we do, right, Lou?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I guess mortgage brokers, we clear out their pipelines. So, they've got, they don't have paper on their desks anymore. It's all obviously electronic, but we go through their pipelines and say, Mr. or Mrs. Broker, you might have 150 pre-approvals. They might, 60% might just be struggling. How about you pass some of those onto us willingly after you've, spoken to the client, and we can then see if we can service that client. And if we can, you get paid when settlement occurs. So it's a win-win for the broker. And obviously, financial planners who like to focus in direct property are obviously a very common partner of ours as well. And also lawyers, solicitors. I guess solicitors can kill the deal. I think that solicitors, in my experience, buying property myself and with clients, if they're on the golf course on Friday and you're trying to do a deal, you could lose it. And so you need to qualify even your clients' solicitors to see who they are, what their working style is like, to make sure, because I think they're the biggest killer of all deals, are the lawyers.
So Luke, again, so coming to that point, was there any point where you thought you might try and go it alone, or were you already sort of an advocate and a consumer of Ben's commentary on the marketplace? What was your sort of process
with finding clients?
With really getting some training and education rather than just jumping straight in without any support?
Yeah, it was funny because I was actually reading articles, like I mentioned before, from Ben in Australian Property Investor magazine. Saw he was a buyer's agent, very successful one. That's what initially got me researching, and it was just the timing that Ben had brought out the Buyer's Agent Institute. And I just didn't think twice about launching into it because I knew, as I said before, I knew how to research property. I knew what property would make a good investment and whatnot. I just didn't know where to get the leads from. So that was initially probably the turning point. Yep.
And you started at the beginning of this year. How many properties have you now secured for your clients?
About 20.
Okay, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
So let's look at this in terms of how this has changed your lifestyle. So what's been the sort of the impact for you and your partner over this sort of 9-10 months so far?
Yeah, look, I'm not really a money orientated person or a number of deals sort of person. I more follow my passion, and that's what it is. I mean, the money is really, really good. Let's not beat around the bush, but it's more the lifestyle, the flexibility, the working out of a home office. It's more the lifestyle that I've really enjoyed about it, not so much the money.
Because you still have to put the same amount of work in. Let's be very, very clear on this. This is not a shortcut to getting rich. This is not an easy option. It's really about flexibility. And I think we live in an era where people respect and understand and demand flexibility wherever possible in their working environment. And I think the unique thing for property, again, this isn't something you would necessarily go. I think it would be very difficult to become a buyer's agent to go from something completely separate. I think you have to, like Ben, have worked either for many years in terms of a property fund or understand property inherently and also be an investor, or like yourself, who has the bug and has the passion and has the foundation. But in terms of, I know that you're not a money orientated guy. I know that you help other people buy property because you care. How do you tend to structure your day now without that 9 to 5 and going out? And I know, look, you're not an office guy as an electrician, but how do you structure your day?
Yeah, look, I'm a very much a routine sort of person. So I have a morning routine where I go to the gym, I do meditation, I write down my goals. So that's pretty well structured. It really depends on what day of the week it is. So if it's Monday, I'm typically ringing agents back, asking them about the offers that we've put in on the weekend. And then generally, I'm having a lot of business-to-business meetings with referral partners, business-to-client meetings, looking for new business. And then it's really about allocating the right amount of time per client that you actually have. So you've obviously got the lead generation side of things, and then you've got the closing business side of things. And generally, I depending on how many clients I've got, I'll spend maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour per client per day looking for the properties and trying to close the deals.
Fantastic. I'd be interested, Ben, just to sort of tap into your knowledge and insight. You've been in the industry for a long time. What are some of the fundamental mistakes that people who decide to make that transition make when they go from being an investor, well-intended and well-educated, but what are the big mistakes they make when they try and go it alone?
I think one of the big ones is the lack of understanding of how to get leads.
Yeah.
Or get clients, sorry. And so they don't pay a lot of attention to that. So they jump out, they get the website up, the fancy business cards, the nice marketing material, and they realize they've got to then pick up the phone and find clients. And I think that becomes a struggle.
So what do they typically do? Will they typically do what I would probably do instinctively and go around all my friends and sort of relatives and then, and then that's sort of a bit of a sort of a shrinking pool?
Correct, yeah, the inner circle. They reach out straight to the inner circle. That dies out after about 7-8 weeks, and then they need to work out what to do after that. So that's typically, I think, problem one. I think also on the flip side, some people do get busy. They are naturally good at getting clients, and they're on the flip side, but then they get too busy. So the big problem, they get too busy, too many clients, stressful, out of balance. They don't know how to service all the clients. They could be geographically spread. So if you're in Sydney, one could be in the Northern Beaches, one could be in Parramatta, one could be in the inner west, one could be in Bondi. And logistically, it's a nightmare. And I've been in that problem as well. I've had that problem.
You become a victim of your own success.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then focusing on the business. So there's one aspect of becoming the buyer's agent, and then you've got to run the business. And so then also there's that struggle of trying to manage both.
And hey, I've run my own business myself and Phil, who's the editor of SPI, and we've got sort of 20 titles in our company, and we have got probably 120 people work for us now. But we jumped into business in 2005. We're both employees. We had to learn. And running a business is, it's not hard, but you need to focus on running the business as well as doing the job that you're doing. So, for Luke and for other people going out there, I think that's very, very good guidance about understanding to run the business as well as doing what the business requires, which is going and finding properties, sourcing clients. Look, just out of interest, so you've got some real good successes under your belt. Where's sort of your vision for taking your business now over the next 5 years?
Yeah, look, from day one, what I said to myself was, if I do grow, which I can imagine my business growing in the next sort of year or so, employing people, everybody has to have the same values, and that is they're not They're not money driven. They're not, they want to create the best buyer's journey for the client. That's ultimately what it is. I do see my company growing and people coming on board. Adelaide's a relatively small place in comparison to Sydney. There's not a lot of buyer's agents around. So I've really see an opportunity there to really take the market and grab it.
Fantastic. Look, just in closing, I'd just like to look at what's involved in the course. How do I get onto the course? What are the costs? Just give us a bit of a run through.
Yeah, so to visit and get information on the course, you can visit the website www.buyersagentinstitute.com.au, and you can also download a course outline there. But I guess in summary, what I mentioned earlier was the crux of the course is really to show people how to run and build 6 and 7 figure buyer's agent businesses, whether they're part-time, full-time, you're in WA, SA, New South Wales, it's anywhere across the country. And I focus on building a low overhead model. So I'm not around spending money on Facebook to acquire leads and spending money on radio, etc. It's around how to acquire clients for free and then how to build a very profitable business doing that. And then in regards to cost, you can obviously get in contact with me personally through the website and I can talk you through all that. So, yeah.
Ben, it's been a real privilege and a pleasure joining you for this podcast. I've learned a great deal. Luke, fantastic work. I'm so impressed with what you've done. Keep up the great work and I hope you grow your business as you plan to over the next 5 years.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Quit the 9 to 5 with Ben Handler. For more advice on turning property buying into your career, head to www.buyersagentinstitute.com.au now.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature, does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.